There is a root that stains everything it touches a brilliant, unforgettable gold. For 4,000 years, people have ground it into their food, smeared it on their skin, painted it onto their gods, and carried it to ward off evil. It has been called the golden spice and treated as something close to sacred. Kings traded for it. Brides are still anointed with it. This is the story of turmeric. Welcome back to Herblore, where we uncover the real stories behind the world's oldest remedies. Turmeric comes from the root of a leafy tropical plant called curcuma longa, a cousin of ginger. Above the ground, it's unremarkable. Tall green leaves, pale flowers. But beneath the soil sits a knobbly rhizome, and when you break it open, it's the color of a sunset, deep, glowing orange gold. That color is the whole story. It's why turmeric became a dye, a cosmetic, a medicine, and a sacred offering all at once. It grows across India and Southeast Asia, and to understand how a humble root became holy, we have to go back thousands of years to the very beginnings of recorded civilization on the Indian subcontinent. Turmeric's story begins nearly 4,000 years ago in the Vedic culture of ancient India. Archaeologists believe it was already being used in the cities of the Indus Valley more than 4,000 years ago, one of the oldest spices humanity has records of. And in the great tradition of Ayurveda, one of the world's oldest systems of medicine, turmeric held a special place. It was seen as a purifier, a plant that cleansed the body and the spirit alike. In an ancient Ayurvedic text attributed to the healer Sushruta, written more than 2,000 years ago, there's a recipe for an ointment made with turmeric, meant to relieve the effects of poisoned food. Healers reached for it constantly, for the skin, for wounds, for digestion, but always with the same underlying idea, that this golden root made things clean. Here's how deeply turmeric ran through this culture. It doesn't have one name, it has more than 50 just in Sanskrit alone. In the north of India it's called Haldi, in the south, Manjal. But one of its oldest names is Haridra, which can be read as dear to Hari, dear to the god Krishna himself. Think about what that means. A plant doesn't collect 50 names by accident. It collects them because it's everywhere, in the kitchen, in medicine, in prayer, in weddings, in the language of poets. Turmeric wasn't just an ingredient. It was woven so tightly into daily life that people needed a different word for it, depending on where they stood. Few plants in human history have ever been that beloved. Because of that color, that living, radiant gold, turmeric became sacred. In Hindu tradition, it stands for purity, fertility, and auspicious beginnings. To this day, in the Haldi ceremony before a wedding, the bride and groom are anointed with turmeric paste, said to cleanse their spirits and bless the union to come. Its yellow was tied to the gods themselves. Women were said to apply it in the evening in emulation of the goddess Durga, whose skin was believed to glow gold. It was the color of Krishna's robes. Some idols were made entirely of turmeric. Turmeric water was poured as an offering. And beyond the temples, ordinary families used it to mark their homes and their bodies on holy days, to invite good fortune and keep ill luck away. This was a plant that lived at the border between medicine and magic. Turmeric did not stay in India. As trade routes opened and cultures met, the golden root began to travel. Historians believe it reached China by around the year 700, East Africa by 800, West Africa by 1200, and eventually the Caribbean island of Jamaica by the 1700s. Everywhere it landed, people found new uses for it, as a dye for cloth and robes, as a seasoning, as a folk remedy, as a coloring for food. Each culture wrapped it in its own customs, but the core of its reputation traveled intact. This was the spice that colored the world gold, the purifier, the root that carried a little bit of the sacred wherever it went. When turmeric finally reached Europe, it caused a quiet sensation. In the year 1280, the explorer Marco Polo described it in his travels. marveling at a vegetable that had all the qualities of saffron, the most expensive spice in the world, yet was not saffron at all. That comparison stuck. For centuries, Europeans called turmeric Indian saffron and used it as a cheaper substitute to dye food and fabric a rich golden yellow. Saffron was worth its weight in gold, harvested thread by thread from crocus flowers. And here was a humble root from India that could paint the same color for a fraction of the price. To the merchants of the medieval world, turmeric wasn't sacred. It was a bargain. But the golden magic was exactly the same. Of course, not every belief gathered around turmeric over 4,000 years holds up. Like every ancient remedy, it collected myths along the way. Powers to banish evil spirits, to guarantee fertility, to protect against every misfortune. That's the nature of folk medicine. A plant earns a reputation, the reputation grows with every retelling, and soon the legend towers over the root itself. But that's exactly what makes these stories worth telling. Turmeric's history isn't a list of cures. It's a window into how people for thousands of years understood purity, protection, and the sacred, and how they reached for a single golden root to hold all of it. And here's the remarkable part. 4,000 years later, turmeric hasn't faded into history like so many old remedies. It may be more popular now than at any point in human history. It's in the golden milk and turmeric lattes on cafe menus, in kitchens on every continent, and it's become one of the most studied botanicals in the modern world. Part of that is our hunger for anything natural, anything with roots older than the pharmacy shelf. And part of it is the story itself, the idea that this glowing golden root once stood at the very center of an ancient civilization's idea of the sacred. The fact that people are still grinding this root by hand after 4,000 years tells you something. Some stories are simply too good to forget. From the temples of ancient India to the cafe menus of today, turmeric has never stopped being the golden spice, the humble root that people once treated as holy. If you enjoyed uncovering this story, subscribe and follow Herblore, because next time we're digging into another remedy your ancestors swore by, and the strange, forgotten history behind it. Thanks for watching. And remember, every remedy has a story.